And I'm going to admit all.
Okay, we're going to be going live now, so let's stand to attention.
Just going to mute everybody. Welcome to this morning's Watch Moths on a bright but chilly morning here in Devon. Let's shut the waiting room so everyone can come straight in and join us this morning. We've just been having a sneaky preview with our mothers, and it sounds like we have had some visitors in the night, which we were a little bit nervous with the weather last night, whether or not we would get any. So just a reminder that we are recording this session. We're also going to see if we can get it to go out live on Facebook this morning to share it far and wide. And so if you would prefer to remain anonymous, please change your name by either clicking on yourself in the participant or on the three little dots on the picture of yourself, and also stopping your video, though the majority of the morning will be visiting our mothers and watching some more lovely clips. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Naomi.
Yeah, hello, good morning. Hope you all slept well. All the ones that were here last night have had a good evening. Today we are still going to be talking about sun's energy a bit more than usual, and we are going to be looking at the moths from our 3 moth experts, and there's going to be 4. We're going to be looking at daytime flying moths as well as the moths that were caught last night, and we'll also be featuring our Plymouth Art Weekender again, and the activity pack and things that we have been making over the last couple of months in celebration of energy in moths. So I think we'll start off last night we had a look at Settle solar array, and Mary from the Solar Power Education took us on a tour to understand more about the way the sun reacts with the solar panel surface, creates electricity, and how that's stored and how that goes on to the main grid. But the site was amazingly rich in plants and insects as we walked around, and I thought, oh well, let's just find out a little bit more about that. So there's another short film with that.
Right, I'm behind the camera, Naomi, and I'm with Mary, and we're at Settle, and we've just had a look round at how the energy is produced. But what I'm also interested in is all this vegetation down here, and a bit more about the history of the site, really. So, Mary, what's sort of going on at Settle?
This was a brownfield site that couldn't have been used for housing development due to the contamination, etc. underneath, and the fact that it's part of a very wet sort of floodplain on the edge of the Tamar. We're also next to the MOD site, and on the other side there's a sewage treatment works.
Yeah.
I think one of the big myths that is nice to dispel when bringing people to the site, particularly children, is that many people see a field of grey and they think that that's the end of the field, but actually in fact the field is very much still alive. In fact it coexists with huge ecosystems going on whilst also producing plenty of energy for us humans.
Yeah, I've really been impressed with the wildflowers here. Such a different mixture. Looks like there could be quite a lot of moths living here.
I should think so. Certainly there's plenty of insects around.
Yeah.
The panels actually produce lots and lots of spiders. They find that as an amazing little habitat, and so because of that, on most solar sites you'll get an increase in small birds because there are more spiders, which is an unexpected nice surprise for many solar builders.
Yeah.
This site is unique because obviously it's on the edge of the city. Some of the other sites may well obviously be in a countryside, and lots of sites are in fact on farmers' fields, and those are very well used because in fact the farmer can continue to use them for sheep, and so the sheep quite enjoy the shade from the panels. The farmer enjoys the income from leasing the field, but also it keeps the grass down so that it doesn't shade the panels. So another example of good working alongside and use of the site.
Yeah, well, I've noticed here they've got fence around this site, but how many solar farms have hedgerows that are sort of kept for the wildlife?
So most solar farms in fact have to have a wildlife corridor around them. Obviously before a site can be sited or built or even considered, a number of ecological studies have to be done, so they'll be taking into account what wildlife is already there. So for instance, on one of the sites I take children to in Devon, they've got a huge wildlife corridor around the outside. They've got bat boxes, beehives, because all of those species were already there, and so as part of the deal to the use of the field, the owners do actually have to continue to maintain the wildlife that's already there and encourage new wildlife along.
Oh yeah, Mary, and this site has the wildflowers between the rows of solar panels, and you said it's mowed twice a year?
It's mown twice a year because of the height of the ground. As you can see, I don't know if you can pick it up, but some of the sort of more wild species are actually growing, and this is the time of year for mowing anyway. And so they would shield the solar panels. So on this site where we can't have livestock grazing due to the contamination underground, that's why they would need a local chap to come and mow twice a year.
Yeah, but twice a year allows for quite a lot of wildflowers,
plenty,
doesn't it?
Plenty.
And you said you've had some beehives on this
site.
site.
Yeah, local group got involved with some beehives. I think they're having a rest at the moment.
I'm going
but
to just show you a few more wildflowers here. And the children, when they come on site and they do their education about energy, you said you let them
so
have a
I'll
look.
do a tour very much like the whistle stop one I did just now, but then we'll let them have a session where we give them magnifying glasses and pooters and collection pots and a spotter's guide, and they go off and see what wildlife they can find. And one of the biggest bits of feedback that we very often get from children is that they just didn't realise how much wildlife there would be. They were under the misconception that it was all grey and it was going to be a boring farm, and they go out brimming with wildlife tales and how many bugs they found and how many legs they had and what the bugs were doing in the pots. It's lovely. It's lovely.
That's great. Well, I think we've done our whistle stop of wildlife on Settle because we've got run out of time, so I'm going to stop our video.
Thanks, Mary.
That's
Jenny?
fantastic. So I was lucky enough back in February to visit the Ernest Settle array there with Mary, with some year 3 students, so 6, 7-year-olds from Ernest Settle Primary. And as Mary and Naomi were saying, the kids absolutely, they loved learning about the solar panels. But in particular, Mary, going and doing the bit of investigating and having the time and the space to run around and look for beasties. And over in one corner, you've got a kind of bug hotel and so on. I pass over to you for a moment to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, as Claire was saying last night, it's about bringing the community in, and really certainly PEC, Plymouth Energy Community, are very keen to get schools onto site and have visitors. And it really is, it's really wonderful to answer their questions and for them to find out that it is such a live site underneath. But also the other interesting sort of byproduct of it is the interest they show in the jobs that they might take on in the future. So I often talk to them about aspiration and the amount of people and the skills that they have. So it's not just about the nature, it's also about some aspiration for the future and bringing some children with their ideas. They've always got amazing questions. And some of them I can't answer. In fact, many of them I can't. But it does, it certainly makes you question yourself, and you sort of think, oh, why can't we have camouflage solar panels? Why can't we, add more animals, etc.? It's very interesting. It does certainly, it opens the gate for debate. It's wonderful. Wonderful. But yeah, I think, like I say, the biggest myth to dispel is the fact that it's going to be a grey site. And if we could dispel that for most people, then that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary, for that. And that whole Ernest Settle site is owned by the community of Plymouth Energy Community, who've been supporting this whole Watch Moths series and the Moths to a Flame project. And yesterday, Claire, who's here this morning, Claire actually gave us an overview of Plymouth Energy Community and what they do, and that is available on our website, because you can re-watch these Watch Moths over and over again if you want to. So we're moving on now to a short film by Will Scott. For those of you that have come before and have seen some of the moth trapping and the moths, there was one episode where we had Will and Simon see what they could find in Exwick. Well, Will got enthusiastic and wanted to show us about the way pheromones work in day flying moths. So some are obviously night flying, and John and others can talk more about the difference between day and night flying moths, but we'll watch this film and see what he has to show us. There's Jenny on the phone there. Maybe she can't find him. Is she? Ooh. All right, 1 minute. She's just. There we are. Here he is.
Good afternoon. So for this month, I'm going to look at moths, but in the day rather than at night, which is a bit weird, because there is a load of moths that like daytime. There's the burnet moths you might see flying around, and other things like that. But today I am looking for clearwing moths, and they are basically wasp mimics and solitary wasp mimics. So they're really hard to spot just the naked eye, and they're really hard to actually tell the difference. A lot of them have really random life cycles, feeding in the stumps of wood or in the root masses of thrift. But the clearwing I'm looking for today feeds on the roots of bird's foot trefoil, which I'm sure you can see I'm just sitting amongst, and it's absolutely awesome. So one thing you definitely need for clearwing luring is a lure. So if I just show this a bit closer. So we've got basically a little bag, and a little bag with a bung in it, and I've come down the bottom of the slope here because I know that this spot, the wind is blowing up the slope, so it will just create a lovely plume of pheromone going up, and hopefully it'll attract loads of six-belted clearwings which feed on the bird's foot trefoil. So fingers crossed. One thing you might need for pheromoning is one of these, a net. To be honest, a net's a pretty good thing to have. If you're into moths and butterflies. It really does help, especially once you get the technique down. You know, you can catch stuff without harming it in any way. Have a quick look and let it go. It does save a lot of frustration. So I'm now just waiting for the winds to basically blow this up the slope, and hopefully some clearwings will appear. Usually with six-belted, they respond pretty quickly, so within a few minutes, you know, as soon as they smell it, they're in there. So yeah, not encouraging signs, but we'll wait it out and come back to it when there's some clearwings.
They're really curious little creatures, aren't they? So different to the moths we generally think of.
Yeah. I was amazed how many came to that little bottle of pheromone.
Yeah.
John, can I ask John a little bit more about the day flying.
Yeah.
The pheromones, John.
Yeah, I think, well, Will didn't quite explain some of the bits. So that bung there is impregnated with a synthesized pheromone which mimics the female moth's pheromone. So the female six-belted clearwing will emerge and she'll sit in amongst the vegetation around the bird's foot trefoil, and she'll emit a pheromone, as do most British moths do that. And then the males are picking up this pheromone. They come in, usually mate with her. But in this case, there's this bung and it's impregnated with this pheromone. It's spreading around the meadow. So all these males, they go, there's a female there, and they all fly in, and there isn't a female there. And eventually they will fly off. I tried it in Buffalo. One day I had about 60 male six-belted clearwings appeared. Depends what the population is like, but it's certainly a very good way of seeing a moth, which is otherwise very, very elusive.
Yeah. So if you're surveying to capture as many species you can that live within an area, for scientific study and to understand how the populations are changing, and occasionally using a pheromone helps you do that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it doesn't harm the moths. I mean, you put the pheromone out, attract the moths, record that they're there, and then you take it away, and they get on and they'll do their own thing. And yeah, it is a way of recording. When the six-belted clearwing, you could see them before pheromones lures were invented. I used to see them in Buffalo, but it's much easier if you've got a pheromone lure. Although you do only ever see males, so I used to mainly see females egg laying before that. So it's a bit, I quite like using it, but it does, in some ways, it takes the sort of fun out of searching for things.
Yeah.
It makes it a bit too easy, but it as a way of surveying for things, it's a very, very effective method.
Yeah, great. Thank you for giving us a bit more info, especially as Will is in the Scilly Isles doing his birding, and hopefully we'll see him next month, because next month we're aiming for a moth-a-thon. We're going to try and get as many moth experts, mothers, to find moths on a flight path all the way from Plymouth up to Glasgow, because if everything had been relatively normal this year, we'd have had the climate change conference COP26 up in Glasgow in November. So we've definitely been going there ourselves with Moths to a Flame. Okay, moving on from daytime flying, we'd like to go to Simon for the nighttime moths that have appeared there, Simon. And thank goodness it's not pouring with rain.
It's not pouring with rain. It's a beautiful, crisp, late summer, early autumn. Well, it certainly feels autumnal. And I must admit, I was not encouraged by the weather, because we had a few showers sweep through Exeter as well. So it was cold, it was quite windy early on. I looked in the trap before I went to bed, and there didn't seem to be much activity. But this is the wonderful thing about running a moth trap. It like crisp time when you're a kid, and in the morning that left was magically full of things, of wonderful things. It's that surprise and excitement that you get when you first look in the trap thinking, there's nothing here, and it turns out that there is. What I would suggest is maybe Jenny, perhaps you could run that short film, because what I did last night was I tried another technique to lure moths using sugar. So I had tested this in the woodland, and here's an old lady, Mora, a large brown moth, which you don't often see unless you use sugar. This is a moth that you do quite often see in a trap, and also during the daytime, the angle shades. And again, this is enjoying a nice drink on that sort of mixture of treacle and beer, and a little bit of whiskey in there to help evaporate off the smell. So although I didn't get any luck last night with that technique, I think it was just really so cool. I did a few weeks back when we were still in that mild spell. I think what we'll do before I delve into the trap, I'll just give you a little tour of the garden again for those that haven't seen my garden, so they've got the context. I might be tricky actually with the beautiful sunshine, but the thing to point out is that although it's sort of late summer, I've got lots of nice flowers still coming on. This sweet pea I planted earlier in the summer, and it didn't do anything for ages, but it's certainly producing the flower now, and it looks beautiful. Some autumn colour coming now in this Virginia creeper, sweeping around. It's a small urban garden on the edge of Exeter. There's where the trap is, beneath the lovely hazel tree that my wife planted and sculpts, if that's the right word. Marsh marigolds are still going. And this lovely verbena is great for things like hawk moths. And John showed last night a hummingbird hawk moth. I was up at Fursden Garden, just a few miles outside of Exeter, and was watching and recorded a hummingbird hawk moth there on salvias in their garden. So look out for those. It's going to get warmer, I think, next week, so we may see those. Should we delve into the trap and see what we've got?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Keep you on the seat. Right, well, so it's been, in the autumn, you often get orange moths turning up, but tonight it was the lunar underwing display. And we've got quite a few lunar underwings. If I get the light correct here. They are very, very variable. They are common at this time of the year. Here. Whoa, hang on, I've just given one a headache there. Gosh, the light is really challenging, actually.
No, you're doing all right. We get the gist of them.
So these are very common at this time of the year. They're very variable as well, and we might talk about variation, because here's one here which is more sort of brown, and then this one here is actually a beautiful orange color, and it threw me a little bit actually, because I'm a bit out of practice. So I looked at this one and I thought, ooh, that looks like a lunar yellow underwing, and I think Amy was referring to that earlier, but that's a notable species. So, and it's only found really in the southeast of the country. So I then thought again, and indeed, if you look at the book here for lunar yellow underwing, this is a lunar yellow. Sorry, this is a lunar underwing, and all of these are lunar underwings as well. And you can see how very variable they are. And I guess this is genetic mutation, which succeeds for some moths that are different. It gives them an advantage, perhaps.
Is it, Simon, is it also to do with the environment? Like if they're mostly in woodland, they might be darker, or something to do with the camouflage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely comes into it. Yep, camouflage from predators comes into it, and also the type of food that they eat, because these are eating quite a wide range of food plants. So probably depends on that as well. Here's a nice moth that probably everybody has seen. Let's put it into the light. Can you see that marking on the side of the body?
Yeah.
Again, it's right, there we go. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. Brilliant to you.
What call that one then?
Oh, I can't remember. It looks like, is that the one that looks like bird poo? It doesn't quite, does it?
Girl has got it, yes. So it's a Y. Can you see the Y shape mark on its?
Oh yeah, I remember.
So this one that flies during the day often, and will visit flowers a wide range of flowers like this verbena and lots of other things in meadows. And it's also an immigrant moth as well. So you can get huge influxes of these. Yeah, go to any sort of, go to your local park, go to anywhere where there's meadow. Particularly a few weeks ago, there were a lot of these flying. And it's rather good, isn't it? It's got this beautiful sort of, what would you call it? It's got a top hat sort of sticking up on the head. And I guess that's to help break up the outline of the moth when it's on a branch. It breaks up the outline so that any predators, birds and things like that, struggle to see it as a moth. They might see it as it just looks like a branch. So yeah, that would help it to evade predators. I'll pause there and
yes, yeah, Simon, there's one little note that Amy's made actually about saying the silverwise a day flying moth too. So it's quite interesting, this thing about the nighttime and daytime flying, and the males may fly more in the day to find the females, and the females are nighttime flying and get distracted by lights maybe more than, so, it's quite a complex story, isn't it?
It is, and actually Richard Fox, who sadly couldn't be with us today, he's got family commitments, but he's just published a paper actually on the impact of light pollution, which, as you might imagine, does have an impact on moths, but I don't think they have been able to prove a link between an impact on populations of moths, because that's fiendishly difficult to do and requires loads of data. And maybe if Richard can make the last one, he could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be really good. Thank you. Thanks, Simon. We might come back, but we'll move on to
some at night, and that's one of the areas where moths and butterflies cross over.
Yeah, it is.
There isn't always a sharp distinction.
The same family, Lepidoptera. Aren't they?
Yeah, sorry, my phone froze up then, so I didn't get that.
Yeah, well, we're moving on now, Simon, to just a little further look at some of the activity packs we've got at the Plymouth Art Weekend. But before we go and see what Amy's has in her trap, so Jenny, you've got a pack, and so have I here.
So if you come along to the art weekend, or if you're able to do that this weekend, or alternatively, these will be available in our shop online shortly. You can collect one of these absolutely beautiful brown envelopes with lots of nice mothiness and the whole moths to a flame kind of theme going on here. And in there you'll find a range of goodies. So last night we joined Chloe and her boys, who were decorating the paper moths with UV paint. Unfortunately, we haven't got UV paint in there, but they look just as beautiful with black ink, multicolored. Go crazy. Some of them we've had some really beautiful, very simple ones returned, and we've also had some that are very colorful, especially when the children are involved. And it's entirely up to you whether you keep those or whether you then send them back. There's instructions in there to send them back to us to join our Whisper, our mass participation artwork, many moths all coming together to give that message of hope for the future. There is also a copy of The Moth's Whisper, the book that we were introduced to last month, written and illustrated by Miranda Barlow, especially for us as Moths to a Flame. And so there's her beautiful story in there to be shared with friends and family. And at the end, the augmented reality colouring sheet. So again, you're able to colour that in, bring it to life and share it with us. And we can add that into our digital artwork, and we'll be taking your message of hope up to Glasgow. And then Chloe has been working very hard on a beautiful activity pack here. There's all sorts in here, from her lovely boys setting up their bathroom moth trap, how simple moth trapping can be and how accessible it really is, to word searches, and moth mazes, some activities to do with observation, so looking at the world around you and thinking about the energy, because I think we do all, I'm certainly guilty of it still, take it for granted and not think about both the energy in terms of electricity and also the ecosystem. Yeah, fascinating the last couple of days how often it's come back to the sun. So we've got an activity here for drawing your dream house with an assortment of renewable energy options, so kind of celebrating that and thinking about what it is that you would aspire to in the future. We've got making seed bombs and growing wildflowers, so encouraging that side of things that we saw with Mary this morning at Ernesettle. And then one that I added in, I'm going to sneak this in, is an activity to make your own peg moth. So using paper, glue, and a good old-fashioned clothes peg to make a little moth that flaps its wings.
Bye-bye. I wonder whether you can do that. But anyway, and I was just going to say that over the last couple of months, when COVID sort of stopped us from going into schools in the same way and working with communities, making thousands of those different moths, we've been exploring other ways of looking at moths, and I've had an episode, part of my life has been taken over by the oak egger moth, because I've been doing cyanotypes, which are a way of, or it's like an old photographic process which uses an emulsion and the sun's energy to create an image on your paper or your fabric. And I came across this caterpillar, big furry caterpillar in the middle of the track, all curled up, looking dead. And I put it in my pocket to identify it, thinking it was dead. And when I got home, it slightly moved, and it was an oak egger caterpillar. And so I've been drawing all my finds. This is the oak egger caterpillar, and the caterpillar I put in a pot because it moved slightly. I got John's advice about what to do with it, and I put it in a pot. And while I was working on something else, I heard the cracking, probably the cracking of the pupae and the chrysalis, and out popped an oak egger. And she sort of looked a bit like this. There she is. And that the pupae is, she's called an oak egger because the pupae looks like an acorn, and that is an acorn on there. But unfortunately, I didn't put a stick in for this moth to come out of the pot, and because I thought she could climb out herself and open her wings on the edge, but that didn't happen, and so I deformed her in a way. I stopped her wings from enabling her to fly. I felt a bit devastated about this, but John said, put her out in the garden and she will, like those daytime clear wings, she will attract a male and they'll mate and the life cycle will go on. So I drew her again, and then a male with its enormous antennae came and found her and mated with her. That's him. I took a photograph of him actually. He did come, and that's him there. And then I put her back in a container, and she produced hundreds of eggs. And here's some of the eggs and the caterpillar coming from there. And then she dies, and there she is, sort of dead with some hazel, I don't know. But anyway, you can see that if you look at things creatively, and if you want to connect all this energy and art and think about how everything's interconnected, you draw it, you observe it. And John and Chloe and Jenny and a whole load of different people work like that. But I've been using cyanotypes. But she did die, and I found out by doing that observational drawing, I found out so much about life cycle, because I didn't realize that the males and females, they don't drink or they don't eat. They just they exist to proliferate the species, and their main life is as a caterpillar, which actually extends over the winter and into the next year before they pupate again, which was about June, July time. So that all of that has been an expression of love, I think, all those cyanotypes. And then Chloe, in the meantime, has been working with the oak gall link, which one of our watch moths, she showed the boys making smaller versions of these, but she's been exploring these. Are you there, Chloe? I'm now hiding myself behind.
Yes.
So I'm going to show another one, but you've been producing an amazing collection of images and exploring and playing.
Yes, so back at the very beginning of Watch Moths, I showed how I was making the oak gall link, collecting oak galls from the park next door. And the start of that was about trying to reduce my energy use in producing the materials, using the materials for making artwork. And because we were all in this cocoon of a lockdown, I thought that it would be good to try and make artwork using materials from around where we were. And so that was really where the oak gall link making started. And then, of course, you found that that egger oak moth at more or less the same time that I was making the oak gall link. And so that started the journey of seeing how to make artworks about moths that allowed a bit of the universe to come into the making process. So when you fold your paper and you make half of your moth on one side and then you squash the ink, there's a bit of some of the control that you have it goes away, and you're left with a bit of chance or a bit of something else that comes into the making process. And when you open it up, you have that reveal. And I really like how the reveal feels a bit like what it's like seeing a moth, just finding a moth. And I like the fact that you've not got that much control with how the thing's going to look.
It's there, and we have a whole load more of them at the Plymouth Art Weekend around on the walls, and also as donations can be given to take one away if somebody really likes one of them. So thanks, Chloe, and see you in a bit down in Plymouth. Now we're going to move on to Amy and Robin, who have braved the outside cold now and are going to show us what they found in their trap.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Hi,
right,
Robin.
Well, hello. Normally
Hello.
at this moment in productions, we have Barry Henwood here with the lovely Mandy, but they're not here, and we don't need Barry because we've got Robin.
Yes, we've got Robin, who's going to be taking a record.
And we have moths, which is brilliant, even though it was cold and I had my doubts. I'm going to turn the camera around first of all and just show you the trap, and also, come on, Robin, let's go and have a show everyone the other bit of the garden. Okay. Speaking of day flying moths, and we have this part here. We've got this rather magnificent tree. The light this morning is wonderful, and this is a chlorhodendron, and I frequently see hummingbird hawk moths on here. And Robin, what's this for here? This bowl of rotting fruit. What do we do with that?
We give it to the red admirals.
That's right. Who else?
And it kind of looks like big drops of poo.
Yes, all right, thank you. But yeah, that's this sort of time of year, putting the old squishy fruit out that's been collecting at the bottom of the fridge is very good way of attracting flying creatures. So here we go. Here's the trap. I've already taken things out, and as predicted, got rather a lot of crane flies. Robin. Oh, we found another one on the ground that we must have missed. It's always worth looking around the trap, obviously, not just in the. Here, you take it. Okay. Now, to me, and certainly still is, I frequently look at these things and think, oh, that's a little brown job. If anybody wants to tell me exactly what that is, I'd appreciate it.
Should I raise it closer?
Yeah, if you raise it closer to the camera.
We'll just come over here and we'll hold it to the camera.
Getting ready to
Okay,
fly.
right, keep your hands still, sweetheart.
So,
Lesser yellow underwing.
Simon, what do you think it is?
Ready to fly.
John's just said it's a lesser yellow underwing. So there we
Oh,
go.
great.
That's one of those. And I know that we've got more of those. So Robin, should we have a look at the other ones? Here we go. Right, do you want to put that one down? Pop it.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm moving the camera a bit too quickly. I always forget.
I pop it in here?
Yeah, you can put it in there if you like. So we've also got this morning. Now this is the one I was happy to see. I'm going to try and tap it out. Robin, can you put your hand out? Hold your hands out. Okay, hold your hands out. Ready? I'm going to try and tap this one in. Whoopsie. Right, he's on the floor as well.
It's upside down.
Okay, don't worry. Right, can we see this one?
Mm,
now look at the
yes.
camouflage, and I doubt it's evolved to look like concrete, but it's
Really camouflage.
Let's see if we can get him up, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it's
okay.
It's
Hold
gonna
it.
make-
Can you hold it?
Yeah.
There
Just-
we go.
up, up.
There.
You can do slow, buddy.
Now, for anyone that tuned in last night
Yep,
and
yep, yep,
listened to
I
us
can do
talking
this.
about the death's head hawk moth and that lovely piece of artwork,
Don't. You're hurting it from behind.
I'm not. Just get it on the.
No.
Right, get it on to walk on your
Wait,
hand. Okay. This little moth is called a coronet, unless I'm very much mistaken. And it's also got a connection with skulls. Here we are. Well done, Robin. Oh no, it's on the. Oh dear. And I was going to just talk a little bit about that because I had a look in that fabulous book.
She has the white underwing.
And it's got a white underwing. Okay. Right. Robin. Okay, you hold it there. That's a little coronet. And that also has a connection with skulls. So the species name of the coronet moth is Craniophora, which means I carry a skull. And when the moth is at rest, which it isn't at the moment, you can.
Am I allowed to put it in with its little buddy?
Yeah, right. Let's have another really good look at it. I'm going to try and hold it on. So can we see? Right, keep really still. Can you see a skull on it? I'm not convinced.
I think I can.
Can you?
Yeah, I think I can.
I think if you're told it might be there, you can see it. But you, yeah.
I think it's
It
supposed
says-
to resemble more a crown.
Yes, well, it says here it carries a skull. It's got two black spots that seem to stare at you. Fits and white markings around you have the skull, but the name coronet comes from a more obvious marking, like the paper crown you get inside a Christmas cracker. So there we go. That's the coronet. What else do we have here, Robin?
I have 2 moths in here.
You've got 2 moths in there. Should we have a look at these ones? I think we've got more lesser yellow underwing there.
Oh, okay.
Please correct me, moth
Wait, do you mean that
experts.
one or that one?
I think they both might be. Are they both?
I don't know. Ooh, pretty.
There's one
Look
there.
at that spider web.
One there.
Kind of looks like
The other one, the lunar underwing.
Yes. Then there's the variation again, because I knew that these 3 were lunar underwings, just like you've been talking about. I'm going to tap some of these out. And you can see they've got very, very pretty sort of almost marbled markings on them. There's another one here. Lunar underwings there. More crane flies. And what do we have here? Not sure, but I know that we have got. Robin, should we go and look at the I think it's a marble carpet on the side of the trap here, which is another very pretty one.
Oh yeah.
Another crane
And
fly.
another crane fly.
Can I hold that one?
You've done well, Amy. Because it was really cold last night. So
Yes, yeah, we've got quite a few. So
Yeah.
but I think on none of the very, very showy ones that we had in the spring and all all the wonderful hawk moths, but still pretty good haul.
Yes.
What do you think, Robin?
I think it was very good to do these.
Yes. Is there anything else that we've missed? Let's have a little look. There's someone hiding in here. What's that? Careful.
Don't worry.
What have we got there, Robin?
Is it alive?
Yes, it is. It's playing dead because it wants you to leave it alone. Thinks you're a great big bird.
Can I get it onto my hand?
No, careful, darling. Let's use something little there. So yeah, lots of little brown ones today, but nevertheless very, very beautiful in their own way. Another lunar underwing there. So
yeah, thank you very much.
There we go.
And
yeah,
I like the fact that your Robin is putting them in a pot to look at them through the magnifying lens and have a closer look to
yes, we will
understand them before you release them out. So
and we might even have a go at painting them as well later.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes,
and add to our collection of art.
Yeah. Anyway, that's us from our pajamas in Abbots Kerswell. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Amy and Robin. Lovely. Okay, Simon apparently has found an interesting moth. Simon?
Thanks. Just very briefly, I showed the picture of the angle shades coming to sugar. I did try the will technique last night, actually, by putting out these hazel wands, sticking them in the ground either side of the trap, and that seems to have worked nicely, because what I didn't see was, there you go.
Oh, isn't he lovely?
Absolutely wonderful moth. Really, you can see how that pretends to be a sort of curled up, withered autumnal leaf, and so there's the hazel trees just doing that curling up at the side. So you can see how that would be beautifully camouflaged against withered autumn leaves. But it's beautiful olive green triangles, and then they've got a pinky purplish triangle as well. A really gorgeous moth.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. That was worth a little detour to Simon. Thank you, Simon. And finally, we've got John, who went out a week ago or a few days ago when it was warm and sunny. And
yeah, I cheated a bit. I set my trap up last week when it was still warm, so
yeah.
I caught a lot of moths actually compared to what we caught here. But I've made a short film which I think I'm going to show now, so I'll have a talk through this. So this is in Bucklersea, not in our garden, but it's a friend's garden I'm looking at the moment. Looking at the bugs and beasts that are living in their ground and their meadows in Carden. So they let me run the trap a few times. So this is the last time, last weekend. I set it up. It's only 5 minutes or even less than that bike ride to get to the site. And I can go there and have a look in the trap. Now you'll see me, whoop, there's a bit, and something flew out then. I'll explain that in a minute. There's a few more of these inside the trap. But first of all, on the rim of the trap, there are a lot of moths just sat up on there. Brimstones, the yellow ones, but the pale green ones are light emerald moths. These are beautiful, very subtly marked moths. And they seem to like to sit on the rim like that. So they're up against the light because they're actually translucent. And you can see there, the light will shine through them. And this is because in the natural situation, and I've seen this because they sometimes fly off from the trap and sit up, and they sit under leaves like this. And when the sun shines through the leaf, you can see they just melt into the background and they merge with the veins. And that's what they do. What I was a bit worried about when I first opened the trap was a big buzz, and this thing flew out. Sometimes when you run traps, you find you're near a hornet nest, and hornets will fly at night, particularly when it's moonlit. And if you're close to a nest, you can catch a lot of them. I remember once I caught virtually a whole hornet nest in the trap, there were hundreds. I just had to unplug it and run away and leave the trap later because they weren't very happy. So I learnt my lesson. But they're fairly docile, and these ones were fine. I just put them in the vegetation near the trap. Obviously, this time of year, as Amy said, there's lots of crane flies turn up. A big fat female crane fly on the left and the male on the right there. They turn up in vast numbers. And some nice small moths. This is a little thing called acrosantha. It's actually an Australian moth, which has got imported to Britain somehow quite a few years ago now, and is quite common. This is a native little moth which feeds on oak, Carcina quercana. It hasn't got an English name, I don't think, but very, very beautiful, tiny little moth, which flies at this time of year. Another micro moth, this is a little pyrale moth. I haven't actually identified it properly. There's about 3 of these species which look identical to this. So I've still yet to work out which it is. This is unusual. This is a red admiral butterfly. And if you've been out on the moors or out in the heaths and out and about lately, you would have seen a lot of red admirals. And I've been out on Bubby Heath and on Dartmoor, and there's been a constant stream of red admirals, and they're all flying due south, like on a compass bearing, and they're migrating. The ones which have hatched here, they're migrating down into southwest England, down into France, and then down into southern Europe. Some of the other moths which we've seen before in other moth watches, the flame shoulder, the square spot rustic, and this is the cetaceous Hebrew character with its little character on there. This is a pale mottled willow moth. And this is one of the common, again, one of these brown ones can be a bit difficult to identify. This is a red-green carpet. This is a moth which actually hibernates as an adult, but only the females hibernate. So all the males will die in the autumn, but the females will overwinter. A dusky thorn moth, one of my favourite moths this time of year. Looks like a dead leaf, has those beautiful green eyes and furry antennae there. So it's actually a species which feeds on ash. So it is probably one of these species which, if ash dieback makes an impact, it might disappear. These are more large yellow underwings. I think Richard in last month's Moth Watch was saying that there weren't many large yellow underwings around, but then they've suddenly appeared in vast numbers. And these may well be immigrant moths which had come up from Europe. There's 2 large yellow underwings and a lesser yellow underwing in the middle. You can tell the male large yellow underwing and female apart. So the female is the redder one on the right. The male is more sort of grey, mottly one. This wasn't in the trap, but this is another migrant moth called the vestal, which again has come up from southern Europe. Again, lovely autumn colours with the leaves. So the moths match them this time of year. So there's a centre-barred sallow and a sallow moth. And I was always keen to have a look around the trap as well after looking in it, because there's always loads of moths sitting around on the walls, quite difficult to spot somewhere. That was a spruce carpet. This is a cypress pug, which again is another moth which has been introduced and feeds on cypress hedges and trees, also known as the black streaked pug, which hasn't been in Britain that long. And this is a native species, the willow beauty. And they can be quite hard to spot, these things. They're just sat on the sort of concrete wall there. And again, like Simon was showing us, the lovely angle shades sitting in amongst the dead vegetation around the trap. Stunning moth. I never failed to be impressed by this moth ever since I first saw one when I was, as a child. And these moths you also find as caterpillars in your garden quite frequently. And again, searching in amongst the grass around the trap, particularly when it's damp and cold this time of year, there seem to be even more moths sitting in the grass. So these are more centre-barred sallow moths, just looking like dead leaves in amongst the grasses. And this was my catch. So yeah, it was a pretty good catch of moths there, and a few other things as well, hornets and various other things. So yeah, it was a good catch though.
Yeah, you did brilliantly. And is it just the temperature change? In the week, how Simon and Amy found, I don't know, half a dozen species and all very beautiful, but far less than you did a week ago. Is it literally just the weather?
Yeah, it will be. The temperature has a big effect on how far moths can fly at night, but also how many moths are flying. They do like it when it's warm, and it was particularly last weekend. As you know, it was still remarkably warm actually for the time of year. But then it all suddenly changed in the week, and now it is. I'm not wearing shorts anymore when I'm out. The last couple of days, it's too cold now. Well, hopefully it'll warm up again now, and I'll get them out again.
Yeah, and so a lot of those species that are around when it's warmer at this time of year. So if it's warm again next week, they found themselves a place to stay a little bit warmer now, and then they come out again next week, and then at some point when it becomes winter or late autumn, they'll either migrate back or what will they do?
Well, some of them, I mean, some of those species we were catching last week are really sort of lingering on from the summer. They would usually disappear by this time of year, but they've still carried on going. That's why I had quite a good haul. But there are also other moths which do fly in the autumn, like those sallow moths, and some like the red-green carpet, which overwinter as adults. So you can find those at this time of year, as well as a few others which are migrant moths, like the silver wire moth and the vestal moth, which I show you. So it depends on the weather, and it can be as we go from now into October, November. You can catch nothing, but you can also on mild nights you can catch some really interesting, fascinating moths. You might even get a few more hawk moths. There's the convolvulus hawk moth, but occasionally things like the silver striped hawk moth and things like this turn up. And someone caught a death's head hawk moth down at Pearl Point the other night. So there's all these things could appear. So you never quite know. So. When I was younger, I used to run my moth trap every night of the year just to see what would turn up. And it was surprising what you could find in the winter.
Yeah, so it's that sort of adrenaline from the excitement of not knowing what you're going to get. Simon asked us earlier, or communicate with you, saying tips for identifying micro moths, please, John. And
well, it's a very good book. It's a very good book by Phil Sterling, who wrote the Caterpillar book with Barry, which is in the, I think it's published by Bloomsbury. So that's probably the best book to get hold of. It's an accompanying volume to the Macro Moth book. So if you get hold of that, I've probably got a copy of it. Hold on a second. Let's have a look. Where's the camera? There we are. The micro moths. There's a lot of them, and some of them are a bit too tricky really to identify, but a lot of them you can, and a lot of them aren't that micro either. There's micro moth and macro moth is a bit of an arbitrary term, which collectors in Victorian times really established between groups that they wanted to collect and they didn't want to identify. But some of the micro moths, like the pyral moths, are actually bigger than some moths which are considered macro moths. Things like the clearwing moths, they're really micro moths really, and butterflies are micro moths as well taxonomically. So all butterflies are moths, they're all Lepidoptera. So all these terms of macro and micro are really just made up by collectors. Yeah,
they're human made to put things in order when actually it's all a lot more integrated and interrelated. And
it is, yeah. If you look at a phylogenetic, one of these phylogenetic trees, if you Google it online, you'll see that the butterflies are what we know as butterflies are grouped in with a whole bunch of micro moths, and all sorts of other things that are not where you think they would be. So they're all butterflies and moths.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much. That was a fantastic film, and glad you went out in the summer, not in the summer, last week when it was warmer, because it was great to see the difference between. And actually next month, which is our last month of this series of Watch Moths, I've already said we're hoping to have, I initially said, let's have 26 moth experts between here and Glasgow, all looking for moths on the same night. And I think the chances of me finding 26 are quite slim, but we're hoping to get, 10 or 15 between here and Glasgow. More from John. Simon, you might be away, but our normal group of moth experts will be there, hopefully, and then there will be additional people. There's a chap up in the Glasgow Botanical Gardens who's agreed to trap some moths for us. If he says there may be none in Scotland at that time, which is true, but it'll be interesting to see that difference between Devon and Scotland in October. So I think it's the 23rd, 24th of October. There's a somebody who's here called Mighty Mothbell. She might turn up and help us at the end of October, which would be great.
And I'm excited there, but I will probably be, I'm hoping to be canoeing on the River Spey in Scotland.
Oh, right. So
It could be take the moth trap as well.
Yeah, it might be, yeah. And maybe you could send us a little film of your travelling down the river, Simon, and we'll show that as an addition. No, you're allowed to have a holiday, so.
Well, I certainly hope I'll be able to do that with the COVID restrictions. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, touch wood. So thank you to all our moth experts and to our participants and attendees today. And it's been a good double bill where we've brought the energy in more and we've seen a much wider variety of moths, considering we looked at the day flying act and pheromones. A little reminder, I'll say bye-bye, I'll hand over to Jenny for one last reminder about the Plymouth Art Weekender and also our collection of Whispers of Hope for Glasgow too. So,
yeah. So just to say that it was really nice that we had quite a few Marnies, yellow underwings, appear this morning. So that's always good. With all the craziness of Plymouth Art Weekend, it's been great fun trying to do that within COVID restrictions. I haven't set up for next month's tickets yet, but I will do that this morning. So the tickets will be available within the hour. I'm going to send Naomi to put the kettle on for a cup of tea, and I'm going to set up the tickets for next month's. But in the meantime, as soon as we've had breakfast, we'll be jumping in our cars and heading into Plymouth city centre. So as I said earlier, we are at the Plot on Union Street, which as you head out of Plymouth along Union Street, it's on the right hand side before you get to Aldi. We'll be there from 11 till 4 today, 11 till 4 tomorrow. Come along and join us to collect your freebie pack and moth friendly plants and so on. If you're not able to join us, then please keep an eye on our website and our online shop, because these will be available to purchase for yourselves and for other family members and friends and so on. I think they'd make a rather nice Christmas present, hint hint. Yeah, otherwise we will leave it for this month and we'll see you next month for Watch Moths. Thank you very much.
Cheers everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Oh, and don't forget that you can record your Whisper of Hope and print off your augmented colouring sheet or augmented reality colouring sheet in the meantime from our website as well. So please do head along, and we'd love to hear, I don't know, the most amazing and the kind of the small little hopes for the future are also interesting. So yeah.
They are. Okay. Thanks.
Right, I gotta end the
bye-bye.
meeting. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thanks, John. Thanks,
Bye.
Amy, Robin, Mary, Claire, and everybody else watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.